Hello music makers, welcome back. Today's sound challenge was supposed to be part of last week's video, but such is the nature of video making, it took me about 20 times longer to explain, record and edit the video than make the sound itself. So we are back with another one, let's go. Alex asked, do you know how to remake the James Hype More Than Friends bass in either Vital or Serum? Clearly having no luck with splice samples, apparently. Yes, well, mostly. This is one of those that sounds a lot easier than it actually is. My first impression on hearing that kind of sound is always FM synthesis. If you don't know what FM synthesis is, go and see either of my synth tutorials. Anyway, my guess was right, but as you're about to see, making a classic FM house bass gets us about 80% of the way there straight away. But the devil is in the details, and we could spend hours or days tweaking those. So let me show you how to go about it. Okay, here we are. I've already worked out the bass line. We're in F minor. The chord progression is 1, 6, 7. Same throughout. We're just on our default sawtooth from Vital right now. Somewhere in an alternate universe where James Hype used a saw wave instead of an FM bass, that's what the track sounds like. Anyway, back to FM. First of all, we need a couple of sine waves. That will do. So the whole principle behind FM synthesis, instead of other types of synthesis where the oscillators are just added together, each with their own volume, in FM synthesis, the oscillators actually interact. They frequency modulate each other. So we're going to get this oscillator to mess with this one. We only need to hear the result of the oscillator being modulated, so we turn the first one down. And here we choose frequency modulation from oscillator 1. Now we have a dial, so this is the amount. This is the amount that oscillator 1 is going to modulate oscillator 2. Let's have a listen. So that's how FM sounds, with one sine wave being modulated by another. Things get really interesting though when we start to change this amount over time. We're going to use envelope 2 for that. I'm going to leave envelope number 1 alone. That's dedicated to the overall volume envelope of the synth. So I'm going to leave that to do that job. So I'm going to grab envelope 2, make a shape something like this, and we're going to use that to change our FM amount. That's too much, so let's back it off. Something like that. You might already start to recognize the foundations of some classic house bass sounds in there. Now, before we go any further, we need to lock the phase of these envelopes. Otherwise, each time we press a key, they're going to play back from a random point, and the sound's going to be slightly different every time. So we don't want that. We want this to be predictable. So now, even though we're not listening directly to this oscillator, any changes we make now are still going to affect oscillator 2, because this oscillator is modulating that. So one of the key character changes we can make is pitch. By the way, on Vital here, if you hold Shift and use your mouse wheel, you can change pitch in octaves. And if we go up 1 octave, this should start to sound familiar. But at 1 octave, you'll hear we're not too far away from that James Hype sound. Now, a little sound design tangent. If you want to play around with FM synthesis a little bit more, you don't have to stop at 1 oscillator being modulated. The original synths, like the DX7, had 7 oscillators. They called them operators, actually. And each one could be routed into the other. A ridiculous number of possibilities. I think FM8 shows the best graphic representation of this. Now, Vital isn't a dedicated FM synth. We don't have 7 oscillators that can be routed freely, but we still have one more here. We can set up a chain where the third oscillator is modulating the second oscillator, which is modulating the first oscillator. And that's going to give us even more sonic options. So let's grab another sine wave, phase lock it, turn it down, and now let's have a listen to this. Let's play with this octave. So a few more options there if you want to play around with FM. Is it useful here for the James Hype sound? Possibly. One of the areas this sound currently lacks compared to James's bass is the attack. And there are a myriad of ways to achieve that. One of the first things I often try is to set up a super short envelope. We can have this modulate all kinds of different parameters to try and give us some click, some attack at the beginning of the sound. Because a transient, or the peak of the sound, is one of the crucial elements that forms a sound's character. One of the first parameters I like to modulate is the pitch. Now this is so fast you won't actually hear the overall pitch change, but you will hear the transient change. So pitch is one option. Another option we have is we can use this spike to modulate the level of noise. That's standing out a little bit too much. It sounds too separate from the main sound. So we can either choose a different type of noise, or we can run the noise through a filter. I'm just going to make sure none of the other oscillators are going through the filter. This is just for the noise. Another option we could try is to have this spike modulate the third oscillator we set up before. All sorts of options. Another thing we could try is use that spike on the high shelf of an EQ. Let me lengthen that decay just so you can see what's happening. And now we can combine a few of those. Hopefully you can hear we've got all sorts of options to shape the character of the transient now. Now this is all very well while we're zoomed in on the bass, soloed, but in the context of a track, things are always different. One of the other key factors of how this sound is perceived, especially in the context of a mix, is the reverb. It's very important. Unfortunately, there's not too much science to this bit. It's just a case of trying lots of different reverbs, and in particular seeing how they respond to all those different attack flavors we had going. My first guess go-to on these kinds of sounds is going to be Protoverb by Yuhi. It's a freebie, by the way, so if you don't have it, go grab it. This preset Thick Large Room gets us in the ballpark. Let's try some pre-delay. Trying to get that vibe of bouncing off the walls of a small room. Let's listen in the context of the track. Definitely helps bring out the character when other stuff is going on. So I'll dial that in later. The other thing I can hear in the original is a slight delay bounce. Let's grab delay by 6 sample. I think we're going to need a 16th bounce. That. Very few repeats. This is just my shortcut rack. Let me show you the actual plugin. As you can see, 16ths. Let's let some more high frequencies through. Accent that attack. Good, now let's back off the level. Something like that. We want the delay before the reverb because we want that bounce to react to the original attack, not the softer diffused version after it's been through the reverb. Now I can hear James's bass has some width to it and ours is mono. So let's grab some stereo widening, probably stereo touch or wider. Be careful with those low frequencies, let's filter those. I think we're going to need some more release on the original volume envelope. And we need to make sure these notes don't overlap in those low frequencies. So let's go to one voice, monophonic mode. Now we also have some more options for attack in the audio domain. We can use a transient designer on this. Kilohertz make a great free one. Listen in context. Okay, that's all a bit over the top right now, but I think all the essential tools are there. Between that lot, we should be able to get close. Let me have a play and I will see you in a moment. Okay, here we are. Let me show you how far I got. Close enough for jazz, as they say. Let me talk you through it. Nothing majorly new here. It's basically all the tricks I just showed you, but dialed in a little bit. As for that transient click, I went for a balance of pitch, FM amount, and EQ, and not the noise. I also ended up employing the compressor to add some attack. It's set to multiband, but I'm only really using the midband. Here's without. Normally compressors squish stuff, but here I have raised the attack window very high, so it takes a long time to kick in, and that lets the high frequencies through, giving us yet more attack. I was also missing some of this fifth harmonic compared to the reference, so I'm using the note tracker which then relates the note you press on the keyboard to the frequency on the EQ. So you'll see the EQ change when the bass changes note. Just trying to grab a bit more of that harmonic that you can hear there. James's bass had a little bit more of that for whatever reason. Could be lots of different factors there. Distortion maybe. As for effects, I did go with wider over stereo touch. Sound a little bit closer to the record. Again with the low frequencies filtered out. There's our transient designer. No change there. Delay also the same. And our reverb, mostly the same, just turned down. I did separate the bass into a separate subtrack and top bass. If you want to see more on that, see my bass processing video. There's also a second bass part. Every now and then we swap over to this 808 style sound. For that, I just grabbed my existing preset that was from the Tech House Bass Sounds video. It's basically an 808 maker. As always, the preset links will be in the description. There's also the piano. This is the same sound from my Piano House video. Playing those 1, 6 and 7 in F minor as we talked about earlier. However, chord 1 is actually a borrowed major. If you saw my Dead Mouse video, that should make sense. So technically, even though this is based on the root notes of F minor, every single chord in this progression is now major, which gives it a very ravey vibe, as if the piano was sampled and now the chord can't be changed. In fact, it might have been sampled, we don't know. Even the bass might have been sampled. Knowing James, it's not unlikely, but here we are, we've made it now. And speaking of the bass, one of the things that makes it harder to hear is this percussion sample that's layered with it. Here in the original, this happens. I'm sure that's confused a few people trying to work out the bass sound, as the parts when you think it's most exposed, when the vocal has stopped, that percussion part is layered over the top for interest. So, that should get you close enough. As always, I'll leave links in the description to the vital patches so you can tweak away and experiment. Let me know in the comments if any particular tweaks helped you nail it. Also down there you'll see a link to buy me a coffee, as any money from this video will be going to James Hype's label. So if you'd like to support me, that's one way, or you could subscribe, or like the video, or leave a comment. And until next week, I'll see you in the comments. Bye bye!